My name is Megan Pereira. I am the Senior Instructional Designer at Buffalo State College, and I am just one of the instructors in this MOOC that we are going to talk about, Accessibility Designing and Teaching Courses for All Learners. I have to figure out which computer I'm hitting here. So again, we have created a massive open online course, so that isn't a MOOC. How many of you are familiar with that term? So it is just we have online courses on our campus, and we have our enrollment of 25 to 100, whatever is decided by the campus and the instructor, but where we have a massively open online course, that enrollment is endless. It is however many we can encourage to sign up. Again, within the MOOC, one of the things that we are doing within this particular research is also looking at engagement. So how do we keep our learners in the MOOC? So one of the research pieces within a MOOC is that you can have hundreds of thousands sign up. How many actually log into the MOOC? How many of them do the assignments? And how many of them actually complete? Buffalo State had previously created a MOOC and ran it on creativity, and we did have a 97% completion rate based on the students that intended to complete. So when you're looking at a MOOC, one of the things that we like to look at is, what is your intention? Is your intention to actually complete, or are you just here to get the information, pop in and out, take what you need, and leave? So that's one of the things that within the research of MOOCs is actually looking at what is the intention of the learner. And then to look at that completion rate. So Buffalo State and Empire State are working on a MOOC right now in accessibility, and what I am going to do is just kind of hop out here, and we have our little intro YouTube video that I'll go ahead and show you, which is kind of our promotional piece here. We do have anything, if you search through Google, Access MOOC, many things will come up. I do want to point out here, we have videos on YouTube. The first one we have with the audio description. So basically, if somebody is visually impaired, we have somebody speaking to tell them what is flashing on the screen. So that one is there also. And then we do have them captioned. I'm going to show the second one. The audio description can be distracting for someone who may not need those pieces. So I will. Things that we're trying to promote is the access anywhere and always. And as you looked at the images on the screen, which is why we needed to have that audio description for someone who needs those visual cues. There are so many people in our world today that are living with disabilities. That if we did not accommodate Stevie Wonder, if we did not accommodate Helen Keller, think of all of the amazing things that they did for us. And so we have those students in our classroom. We have these amazing and wonderful people that we need to be sure that we are giving them access so that they can work and live and succeed to their potentials. And so that's one of the things that we really want is that access everywhere and anytime. And that's as we go through the MOOC, that's kind of where we're looking at it. So the MOOC is an IIT funded grant. So similar to this day here, the funding that Alfred State received, we too have received funding to create this. And as I mentioned before, it's ourselves and Empire State that are working on this. We are all instructional designers, and from disability services, a lot of the collaboration that happens between instructional designers and disability services have come together to create this MOOC. It is being actually run through Canvas. So Canvas is again similar to Blackboard that you have here at Empire State, but Canvas at Alfred State. I was like, that didn't come out right. We are using Canvas. So Canvas has their traditional learning management system, like Blackboard, but then there is also their MOOC platform that allows for that large enrollment to happen. One of the things that we are doing, as we were talking earlier about intellectual property, everything that is inside of this MOOC will have a Creative Commons license for reuse and adaption. So what that means is that if you find a video, if you find an activity, if you find anything inside of this MOOC that you would like to take and reuse, you are more than welcome to do so. Every video, every component is available for you to take and reuse, which is something that as we were designing the course, we really tried to keep that in mind. So if you want to come in and complete, week 3 or module 3 first, it's actually okay, because what happens in 2 and 1, we do that in isolation so that learners can come in and users can come in and pick and choose what they are interested in learning about. So you don't have to take all. We encourage you to do that, but it's not something that you have to do. So you certainly could do a week 3 and not do 1 and 2 if you felt as though 1 and 2 you had some competencies in and were willing to move forward on that. So the structure of the course that we have, it's a 6-week facilitated, and then it will turn to on-demand. So within those 6 weeks, there are 3 topics that we'll be talking about, and they will be facilitated. So as I mentioned, we do have a lot of people from Empire State and Buffalo State who will be in there, replying to discussion forums, answering any questions that you have during the course, and then it will turn to an on-demand course. So what that means is that after those 6 weeks, we will then keep the course running, and people can start at week 1, at 3, at 2, at 6, but then we will not actually be in there facilitating the conversations. So we're really trying to look to encourage people at this time to start the course during those 6 weeks facilitated time through the February 22nd and April 4th, so that we can have that dialogue. What that also allows us to do, as many of you know, within your courses that you teach, after you teach it the first time, you tweak and change and update the content so that you can be sure that any of those questions that may have come up, we can then take it and put it into the course to be sure that when we put it on demand, any of those questions are actually built into the course. So enrollment is open, yes?
Does that mean when you're on demand that you don't have any benefit of the facilitated part?
That's exactly
In other words, that hasn't been captured?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the discussion forum, so if there is a question and one of the facilitators respond, we're not clearing out any of the discussion data, so you could go in and find a question that was asked during February and read the answers. Those will remain in there, but as the facilitators, come May, you decide now I want to go in and take this MOOC. I have time. Semester's over. We will not be there to facilitate. What we do have is an email address. It's just accessmooc@gmail, which I'll share later. That those questions will then, if there is a problem with the course, if there's something that isn't working anymore, we do have a contact at Canvas that we will continue to update and make sure that this course can continue on. And that's one of the big benefits that we wanted to be sure that we could capture. Because even though it's a 6-week course, after April, there may be still people that are interested in this professional development opportunity. And so that's where we are right now. So we will not be in there facilitating, but we are still available for questions and things like that. So I will show you where you can enroll, but it does start February 22nd. And and as we were talking at lunch, we currently have 868 people enrolled in the course right now. So we're pretty excited about that, hoping to still encourage. One of the things within a MOOC is the community that you're in there with. A lot of times the questions that are asked, there always seems to be somebody within that community that you're taking with. If a facilitator doesn't actually answer it, because of the wealth of knowledge of those that are enrolled, many of the participants actually respond. So as in our online courses, it's the same thing. Please ask the question in the discussion forum, because another student may have the answer rather than waiting for me to come in and answer it. So with that large number of 868 people, if they're all in there and actively participating, there's just a real wealth of knowledge in there. Yes?
What's the cost?
It is free. Yes, any MOOC that you take is free. If there are certain products that if you want a certificate or you want like a signature track type thing that you want the certificate, you can pay. This course right here is free. There is no payment.
So it's like the same principle as real estate?
Yes.
Related question, some MOOCs generate credit hours
Correct.
from the sponsoring institution, and sometimes that's a separate category of completion because you're paying for that. Is that, when you said 97% of intended?
Yep.
Was the
Completed.
differentiation between intended to complete and?
Those are the ones that paid. Or Buffalo State. Yep.
So 97% paid.
90% of those that paid and had an intention completed
Oh,
with our creativity.
and so,
Yes, and so that's just it. I mean, when you're looking at the MOOCs, we are seeing that those that have that interest of receiving that credentialing piece, they're there to complete. They're looking for some sort of credential, whether it's to further themselves professionally. We had a lot of people in the previous MOOC who were unemployed, and were looking for something to credential them so that they could go out. And in regards to ours, it was creativity. And so it was the brainstorming. It was how to expand your thinking, which is always a great skill to have.
was that a SUNY rate? Who sets the rate for the?
That was through Coursera, and Coursera set the rate. Yep. In Canvas, this is a free course right now, and I do not believe that Canvas themselves have a signature track like Coursera does. They are currently working and trying to create that. At this time, they're just a smaller company, but definitely growing, and we'll talk about why we chose this product over Canvas when we get to the end. Actually, I can probably just tell you right now.
Is there a URL?
Yes. Yep. We'll get there. Trying to keep you in here, and then we'll go ahead and get you there. Since you know it's on Canvas, you could probably figure it out. But one of the things the reason that we are using Canvas is that Canvas has received awards from the National Federation of the Blind. And so when we were looking to create this MOOC on accessibility, we knew that everything that we did, every decision we made, we needed to ensure that everyone was going to have access. So even from the start of the product, we needed to be sure that the product itself was accessible. Many of them were, but because of the award that Canvas received for the National Federation of the Blind, we knew that this was one that we wanted to go ahead and work with. So again, a real quick, just kind of go through what is actually happening in the course. So why accessibility matters. So similar to what you heard this morning from Andrew, we have put some pieces in there of why do we need to do this. Yes, it is the law, but then also kind of the way that Whitney Rapp talked this morning. There's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. So, but why do we actually need to go ahead and do this? And I think kind of that intro video kind of gives you that a little bit. With those, many famous people have a disability that we may not have even known about, and those students are sitting in our class. So we need to keep them engaged and enriched in the courses that we are offering, because many of them probably have that hidden gem that we just don't know about yet. So we need to be sure that we're supporting them. Integrating faculty and staff roles. So how, as a faculty member and the staff that you have here at Alfred State, how do you work together to create that team to be sure that all of our students are successful. And a day like today, you have that here at Alfred. You have that. And a day like today definitely shows that you have that. But what we have is different faculty and staff members talking to you from different campuses on how they are actually doing this. So a lot of different, we've involved a lot of outside speakers that have come in. So there's many people within SUNY, as I mentioned, Whitney Rapp is one of the speakers. But we do have people from outside of other experience that we have within this MOOC. So those are the first 2 weeks. And you can see, so we do have the dates on there. So as I mentioned, it's open for that time, but if you decide that these 2 things you're pretty set with, in your time management, you can decide whether you want to come in or kind of catch up on those. Moving into the weeks 3 and 4, the Bloop Blueprint for equal learning opportunities and taking the action to provide equal learning opportunities, and that's the universal design. So what Whitney Rapp was doing this morning, we break all of those individual pieces down. We have Buffalo State faculty and Empire State faculty exactly giving you examples of how they are incorporating this into the class, explaining the networks. And then what we also do in week 4 is we talk about the benefits of backwards design. Are any of you familiar with backwards design? Many of you may be doing it and you just really don't realize it. But a lot of times when we are creating our courses, we have our objectives, we pick our books, and then through the books, then we create our assessments. With backwards design, what we actually do is we look at the objectives, then we decide the assessments. So we look at what do the students need to know, how are we going to assess them, and then you kind of fill in the gaps of what resources do I need to find. And that relates a lot to backwards design because it gives the students more of an explanation of why. Why is this the assessment based on this objective? So the students are just seeing, it's kind of that's why we kind of named that first part the blueprint. So they're kind of seeing everything laid out. These are the objectives of the course, these are the things that you have to do by the end of the course, and then the resources in the middle are to get them from start to finish. So you're actually designing it in a backwards fashion. And so we talk about the benefits of that for the learner. By us as faculty and staff developing the course and showing that to the students, we're seeing that the students are understanding, and there's not a question of, well, why do I have to write this paper? Why can't I do this? Why do I have, because it's right here. The objective is this, and these are the ways, and as Whitney talks about, and we talk about in universal design, there doesn't always have to be that one assessment. Give the students a choice. Let them go ahead and show you ways that they can show you what they have learned. So we talk a lot about that within the weeks 3 and 4 of Universal Design for Learning. Weeks 5 and 6, the methods for compliant in creation, and then also the tools and assistive technology. So in here, we really kind of dive into the technical components. So for those of you who are really interested in the assistive technology, so what types of technology does our students use if they are blind, if they are hearing impaired, low vision? And so we have student examples of them showing you what types of technology they're using to access the content. And what we also do is show you where some of the barriers are. So as you are creating your syllabus, what are you doing technically that is actually causing a barrier for some of the students? And so we kind of get into that technical component for that, and we talk about the WCAG 2.0 guidelines. So that's more like a checklist. So what are the things that we need to be doing? So of course, when we have a video, which I did not put the captions on there, and I probably should have, because you think that we need them in an online course, but in here I probably should have also put the captions on or the audio description. Because not knowing who my learners are, I need to have access to that so that they can put that on there. So those are what we're talking about in weeks 5 and 6. And so you can see kind of how it lays out. And everything is a week. Let you go through and you can take it through. One of the nice things within a MOOC is that you can do it at your own time. We are in there facilitating. There will be some due dates, but that's only just to keep people on track because it isn't on demand. If you don't complete it on that particular date, that is okay, because one of the things that we have incorporated in here, these are the learning activities, is it's actually a peer review assignment. So we do have videos, podcasts, which are just audio pieces. There are particular readings that we will send people out to. The self-checks are the, true, false, multiple choice quizzes. So do you understand the difference between the recognition network, the effective network? The discussions are there to encourage the conversation. They're not graded discussions, but they're just there to encourage the conversation. Specifically, I am working on the Universal Design for Learning component, and our discussions are basically asking you, similar to what you probably do often, is that what problems did I have in my class this week? How can I actually go ahead and adjust them? And so that's where the conversations come in. So, this is what I've had this problem in my class. Anyone else have an idea? There are 868 people, hopefully, at your disposal at this time. And then, of course, the peer review assignment. So there are assignments, and then we do ask the peers to review. So you as a participant would submit your assignment, and then what we're asking is that you also look at 2 other people's to go ahead and provide them feedback. And that's one of the big things with inside of a MOOC, because as an instructor, I am not going to be able to grade 868. Even with 15 other instructional designers and staff that we have and faculty working on this MOOC. It's a lot of work. So in the MOOC, we try and find things that are self-checks and sustainable on their own, and the community comes together to provide feedback on that. And again, in regards to the assessment, so those peer-reviewed assignments, those are the graded components. And there is a rubric that we provide, and it's really a, it's pretty simple. Does the person, explain this? Have they showed evidence of this? Have they offered a solution? And then what we are adding in there, so we talked kind of about the credentials and the credits, so you receive credits. So what we are doing inside of Canvas are providing the badges. And so they are stackable to the course. So each week that you complete, you get a badge. And then at the end, all of those badges come out to be the certificate of completion. Canva badges are the product that we are using that is built inside to Canvas. And one of the interesting things about badges is that they sit in a system. It's how do we get them out? How do we get them out? How do we take them with us so that I have them? And so we are using the Mozilla Open Badges, that Mozilla backpack, which is kind of the industry standard, that the user that finishes it can take it out, can put it online into this backpack, and then really the Mozilla backpack, users that finalize it, they can put it on LinkedIn, they can put it through Facebook, and things like that. One of the badges has been really, really interesting. Recently, a lot of kind of private businesses we have noticed is they're not actually asking for resumes anymore. They're asking for your LinkedIn account. And so on that LinkedIn account, they want to know who are your networks, where, what are you looking at, and things. So it's definitely interesting. So these badges are those visual cues of completion that after you finish, you can take with you and display them however you would like. So that's kind of where the assessment is for this MOOC on accessibility. So social participation. So one of the things that we are really looking to do, so not only have conversations in the course, but also to take what you are learning and it's expanded out through social media. So how many of you are on Twitter? Anyone on Twitter? Okay. So our Twitter handle is AccessMOOC. So as you are going through the course, we will ask you and encourage you to take what you have learned and put that out through AccessMOOC. I showed you earlier, I went on to YouTube and all of the videos. If you search AccessMOOC, you will find them there. And again, that's the other thing that we decided to do with this MOOC is that the videos themselves are not hosted inside of Canvas. They are on YouTube. So actually, as we develop them and they are put into the course, through YouTube, you can find them. They will be searchable. So you can take them, and share them in your own professional development, share them with students, and use them how you wish. And then, of course, there's the email. As I mentioned, we have accessmooc@gmail.com is available to you. So this we are using now We've already received many, questions in regards to the MOOC. What if I can't start on February 22nd? Can I start March 1st? Yes, that's fine. You might have to do some catching up to make, to be with the group and the cohort. And then as we continue on, we will keep that Gmail account, as we mentioned, in regards to that on-demand component. So if there are things as people are working through, we are still accessing and checking that out. And then if you are on Facebook, so some people are on Facebook, or they're on Twitter, or they're not on Facebook, they're not on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page. So again, it's searching of Access MOOC. And you can also go ahead and like us on Facebook. We're continuing to advertise the course. But what we're also doing, not only just on Twitter and through Facebook, but as there are other things that are happening in the world of accessibility, to ensure if there's new resources out there, if there's new tools, we are trying to post them to create this social participation so that we can find the resources that we need. We know that there are some things in regards to the laws that will be changing, so when those changes happen, and we're being asked to do different things to promote the access for students, we're hoping to kind of create this community so that we can continue to share the resources that we have and kind of keep our students moving forward. So there it is. Where can we register for this course? So it is canvas.net. You can search accessibility, and I'll actually show you right now and locate the title of the course. So I am just going to kind of pop out of here for a minute. So if you find canvas.net, you have the ability to search our catalog, and if you just search accessibility, it's the very first course that comes up. Accessibility, designing, and teaching courses. And I can click on the course, and right from in here, I can go ahead and enroll. Go ahead and log in just to show you a little. That works. So in Canvas, here I have the list of my courses. Go into the course. So here we start with the welcome, and then each of those are the weeks, and then those are actually the badges that you will then receive. So that's kind of how it lays out for you. The first part of the MOOC actually takes you through like tutorials on how to actually use Canvas. So that's one really nice thing. It doesn't jump you into the content right away. It actually takes you through some tutorials so that you become comfortable with the actual technology, and encourage you to go and introduce yourself and see who else is in the forum. And then it takes you right into the content. So that is kind of where we are right now. We're currently finalizing the development. Canvas needs to have the course handed over to them, if you will, by the end of January. They do a review of the course to be sure that links work, the content is there, the assessments are working correctly, to then have any time to make any adjustments to the course to then start launching it at the end of February. So that's kind of where we are, and we still have time for questions.
I have a question. Now, the facilitation, is that synchronous or asynchronous? I mean, when someone is online, are they knowledgeable that there are other people online at the same time, or are there set times?
Yeah, so right now, it is asynchronous. It is asynchronous. We have talked about doing synchronous components so that we can, go ahead and tell all of those participants that are there, tomorrow evening, or that we will be available at 4:30. We haven't incorporated that yet, but we have certainly talked about it because of the way the number of people of that we may have. It's kind of like will they come? And making sure that it's a time that everyone is available. Just kind of curiosity, if you were in a MOOC, would you be interested in asynchronous time?
I would want to do it on my own
On
time.
your own time. And that's kind of one of the benefits of a MOOC, but that's currently right now it is asynchronous, synchronous time has not been incorporated.
I'm thinking in terms of the time of response.
Yeah.
When if there's a facilitator
Yep.
available, is that facilitator available all the time, or what's the expected time?
Yeah, sure, that's a great question. And I can't remember if we have it in the documentation. So we are all broken up on individual weeks. So there are 3 people that will be monitoring weeks 3 and 4. And, so we will so I will be responsible for Monday, they will be responsible for Tuesday. Of course, we won't be sitting there, but I would probably say in most cases within, 3 to 4 hours, you should probably have a response, because we've kind of, I know my group, what are we doing this week? We are facilitating, but it may vary based on individual week, because there are different people monitoring different weeks, because I believe there are 15 of us, 15 instructors in this course.
And then are the responses from other people removed? How is that determined?
Right, so they will be through discussion forums. So, if you post a question and someone replies through the threaded discussion forum. And many times, the previous MOOC that I have facilitated, if I see that someone else has, answered it correctly, there's, may not be a reason for me to go ahead and reply again. So you may have a response from, another participant rather than one of the facilitators. Yes, sir.
So, you can apply for certificate upon completion.
So the way that this works is that if you go through and you complete all 6 weeks, you will receive a certificate. That's the way that the system is set up. Yep, so there's no applying for it or anything. It's just a professional development opportunity that you will then end with the stackable badges, which will then lead to a certificate that you can use.
But it's not credit bearing.
Correct. At this time, yep, it is non-credit.
But that's not the case with all MOOCs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. So there are particular MOOCs and courses that if you complete it with that certificate, it can actually equal to credential credit hours. That is something currently that I know is, in regards to middle states and and things like that, in regards to accreditation for colleges. That's pretty big right now. Is how do you actually take a MOOC and actually turn that into credit hours? I can tell you that for Buffalo State, we are flipping one of our courses. So it's a hybrid, it's an online course that will be that we will flip it, and half the content will actually be the MOOC content. So the instructors will use the content they created for their MOOC, and that it will be. But at this time, it's a flipped classroom. So it's not that it's 100% through the MOOC, so that they still have the contact time with the instructors.
How many different course topics are available in this format?
So, if through Canvas or within this particular course?
Let's say for Canvas. The reason I'm asking is, I tend to use some of the hands-on stuff for my students, and usually it comes from the publishers. And the price tag is unbelievable, less semester, to a great degree of my frustration, and especially my students' frustration. Their content just did not work. Nevertheless, they ended up paying for it and didn't really get to use it, and because it was towards the end of the semester,
Sure.
the publisher said, well, you had the thing for the whole semester, we're not going to reimburse you.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Um,
So in regards to, Canvas is a MOOC platform, edX, and you can certainly work, with your instructional designers and even your library here, at Elton. They can help you find some of those open, they're called open educational resources. so that, you know, you can certainly use those. I'm on Canvas right now. What is your content area? And we can just look to see if there's a course. So what do you teach?
Information technology, let's
Oh.
do C#.
Say that again?
C#.
Like literally
C pound. Like sharp, like musical sharp. That's it, go back. That's it, right now, C#.
And that may not be as specific in there where you said information technology. That might want to go broader.
Well, we've got a couple.
Oh, so do those look interesting to you?
Yeah, but I think they might be a little off unless there are more of them.
So these are, and that's just, the biggest thing about using open educational resources is finding the time to look through the content. You know, a lot of it is, you know, making sure that what you find is going to be, you know, usable. You know, the nice part is that it's free. So where you spend a lot of time working with textbook publishers, you know, and then you get what you know, you kind of get that package together. You know, here within MOOCs or, you know, within open educational resources, you can go through and pick and choose. You know, you can, you know, link into, you know, module 3 inside of this MOOC to use that content, you know, link out to, you know, different resources. So it's really just a matter of taking that content that you have, those keywords, and just kind of doing some searches through the MOOC content. Because there's, you know, a variety of topics out there, and you may be surprised, you know, at finding it, but
Does Moodle do the same thing?
I don't know if Moodle has an open platform. I don't think they
It's
do.
open source.
Yeah, it is open source, but I don't think they have an open platform to for MOOCs at this point in time. They may, if you know, if a campus has it, they might be running it through Moodle, but I'm not. So this is, you know, Canvas Network. So it's the MOOC platform for Canvas Network. Blackboard has Course Sites, which is their MOOC platform. So a lot of the LMSs that we use for our day-to-day courses that we're offering, many of them are now creating a MOOC platform just to hold kind of that high demand of access.
Udemy out there?
Oh, yes, Udacity. Is it Udacity? That's the other one. Yeah.
Udacity?
Yeah, Udacity, there's if you just search like MOOC platforms, quick Google search, you'll find all of them. There's so many probably that I don't even realize exist.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
One of the
Udemy.
things that's happening is that people are wanting to use MOOC credit hours granted by another university as a transfer course. And it would seem to me that the campus that's evaluating the transfer has to have some pre-existing list of acceptable transfer MOOCs
Classes that are transfers.
that would transfer in or transfer in satisfaction
Correct.
in a particular discipline.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, there are a lot of, you know, universities that have created that. You know, I can, you know, Buffalo State has, you know, this is the second MOOC that we have worked on. But the campus itself is not looking to credential, you know, students bringing in. So it's going to be, you know, campus-based. There's probably going to be, you know, SUNY things that we need to look at in regards to, you know, a seamless transfer type piece. But as I mentioned before, it's also making sure that things are followed within our accreditation. So not only, you know, Middle States accreditation, but within those accreditations from departments.
Right.
So yeah, there are certain campuses that are doing it. I don't know much about what the process is to how to get that through. You know, but it is happening. But I can say from my, you know, perspective, you know, Buffalo State, we're not, you know, at that point of accepting those credits. And I'm not too sure. I'm sure there are people in SUNY that are talking about it and looking at it and thinking about it. I just don't sit around that table.
Nor do you want to, probably.
Oh, Udemy. Okay.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
I guess there are.
Yes, there's many, many. So any other questions? We hope. Right. It's, you know, like I said, we'll, as we go through, if any of you are attending the SUNY CIT conference, we will be presenting there again on the, the end of the course, how it worked out, how many users we had, what type of, as I mentioned, we're doing research, on, the encouraging of keeping people and the,
Going on that, so you survey students as they enter the course? Is that how that works? And then it's
that's a
just
great
to
question, yeah.
see what their interest is?
Exactly. So Canvas actually incorporates surveys. So there's a survey at the beginning, middle, and end, so that we can capture what their intent is, how things are processing through.
Does that factor in like demographics as well? Because I'm wondering what the difference would be between an 18-year-old using this and
Yes.
a 25-year-old using this?
Yeah,
and a 35-year-old?
exactly. And I know that we're doing the research component. We've have our IRB in, and we've got that all passed through. And so but yes, they do collect the demographics of age and gender and things like that. Yes,
That would be
they do.
interesting to see.
Yes. Like I said, they have their own questions that they ask, and we can add individual questions. So for our research, we can add particular questions, but the questions from Canvas we can't touch because Canvas themselves are also doing research in regards to MOOCs and engagement and conversation. SUNY CIT. So SUNY CIT is a conference that is held at the end of May. It is in Potsdam this year. A little promotional here. My scarf kids. So again, a quick little search. We do have a new website. We're very excited about our new SUNY website. So it's the SUNY Conference on Instruction and Technology. I know right now, I'm sure, Ellen, you're waiting for, we put our proposals in. Proposals are in. It is at SUNY Potsdam. And so I do know that for first-time attendees, there is the opportunity to apply for a grant for some funding. If you have never attended SUNY CIT, all the proposals are in. But it's the one nice thing that I really like about CIT is that it's faculty that are actually talking about their teaching with technology. You also have the instructional designers and that are talking also, but it's the big conference that SUNY puts out. It's at the end of the semester, so that we can really encourage. It's always on a SUNY campus, so you have the opportunity to stay in the dorms, or it's a little bit cheaper to stay in dorms rather than in hotels. I stay in a hotel. But yeah, so if you cit.suny.edu is the website, and it is in SUNY Potsdam this year. And I don't think that they've announced where it is next year, but it's May 31st to June 3rd.
Last year was Geneseo, the year before was Cornell.
Yeah. So it's always at it's a really great conference. They always bring in a lot of great speakers. But like I said, it's kind of the brought to you for faculty by faculty. It really is a great conference to go to, and so many varieties. Here you can see the tracks. So open educational resources, the track, student engagement, inquiry and scholarship, student and faculty support, access and accessibility, and going mobile. So it's always I think it's a great conference to go to. It's one of the cheaper ones. It was at Cornell a couple years ago.
2014.
Yes.
Cornell's?
It's a portion of the campus is.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It's kind of like how ESF and
So it's like
Syracuse.
across the street.
Yeah, sort of certain state.
Well, it's part of it. It's statutory, or statutory.
Yeah, it's like how Alfred, the ceramics school
Yeah.
for Alfred University,
Yeah.
just like that. One little school within.
SUNY presence.
I know University of Rochester did not.
Yeah. So any other questions? Well, thank you, and I hope to see you in the course. Again, it's just a nice continuation of what you're doing, here today, and actually going in and learning a little bit more, taking a deeper dive and really kind of applying some of the things that, we've tried to make it pretty, applicable of what you're doing. So it's, take a module of your course and, trying to apply. So we've tried to make it as practical as possible, for faculty, but also in the regards of, just trainers in general. Also from a K-12 perspective and things like that. So it's a great professional development opportunity for people to come in and work on that.
I'm more interested if I ever had to teach human-computer interaction.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Megan.
Very informative.